plants.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to this meeting this evening. We're going to be featuring the books that you see here, The Cactus Plot by Vicky Ramakka and the new Death in a Desert Garden by Marty Eberhardt. My name is Rosemarie Kern. I'm the president of Southwest Writers, an organization that is writers helping writers. I'm also an author, and it's interesting, both of these books, as I was telling people earlier, are set up in the desert gardens because I'm a master gardener in New Mexico. So, and I've written books also on garden or microclimates and gardens. So our featured authors this evening, Marty Eberhardt, I'm going to start with you. She has directed botanical gardens in Tucson and San Diego, spent many years as a nonprofit staff member, board member, and consultant. She now delights in using the right side of her brain to write fiction and poetry. Death in a Desert Garden is her first novel. Marty has published several poems and prose pieces in the Wilderness House Literary Review, the Dragon Poet Review, the San Diego Writers Inc. 2017 Anthology, the Twisted Vine Literary Review, 4 volumes of The Gilded Pen, and the Silver City Quarterly Review. She divides her time between the small mountain town of Silver City, New Mexico, and the sprawling beach city of San Diego, enjoying the flora and fauna of both. She lives with her husband, Phil Hastings, and their dog, and spends as much time as possible with her children and grandchildren. And so Marty, why don't you wave here and
here I am.
Kind of say a little bit of hi. Marty, as I said, she is the author of Death in a Desert Garden. Our other featured author this evening is Vicky Ramakka, also a Southwest Writer member who grew up on a farm in upstate New York, which sparked an early interest in plants and animals.
Right.
She has spent most of her career in higher education in the Western US, while her husband worked as a wildlife biologist for the Bureau of Land Management. Those together, by the way, really do make a lot of sense when you read that book. She published in academic journals, wrote numerous grant applications and reports, and a variety of marketing materials. She now writes about the Four Corners region, where she claims she meets the most fascinating people who are always willing to share their stories. Her publications have won awards from the New Mexico Press Women. She's currently living in northwestern New Mexico with her husband, where she writes and enjoys photographing flora and fauna that reside in her backyard, which she considers any place within a mile's walk. And the third member this evening is the publisher of both books, Geoff Habiger, who is the publisher of, Artemesia Publishing is his company. Geoff's an author as well. He's the managing editor at Artemesia. He has 8 books and multiple short stories that have been published. Since its start in 2004, Artemesia has strived to publish quality books by quality authors that will educate, inform, and entertain. Artemesia Publishing has 45 titles from over 20 different authors. As a small independent traditional publisher, they work in partnership with the authors to bring books to the public. And Geoff, if you want to wave and show them who you are in this grouping here.
Hello.
So welcome everyone, and hopefully, let's see, we've got keep an eye out. I'm missing 3 people, Geoff, if they should happen to show up. So I want to, let's see, Marty and Vicky, do you have any opening words you'd like to say? Let's see, Vicky, where are you?
Okay,
There you
I'm
are.
not the, I'm at the very top on my screen. So is everybody who's here, I think. I just want to thank Rose for hosting this and moderating. That's great. And for all the work you've done with the Southwest Writers as president, officer, and tremendous support. That's a great group, and I've learned so much from the workshops and meetings. It's great. And just want to say hi to Geoff and Marty, and we'll get underway.
Excellent.
And I just like to let people know that Rose also does consulting with aspiring authors. So
Actually, a little bit. I mostly do formatting work for them to help get published. So, okay, Marty and Vicky, I'd like you each to tell us what your book is about, basically, and how you came up with the idea and why it was folded into the mystery genre. Marty, your book has just come out. It's brand new. So why don't you start with this?
okay, you want me to give a little bit of the plot so we know?
Yeah, what is it about? How'd you come up with that idea? And why a mystery?
Okay, so this takes place in a mythical botanical garden in Tucson, Arizona. And the founder of this garden gets felled by a eucalyptus branch. And lo and behold, it was not an accident. And lo and behold, she does die. And also, it appears that every single member of the small staff and board had a motive to kill her. So the heroine, who is a single parent, overworked single parent, helps her friend, who's a police detective, Marcia Samuelson, to sort of wade through all these interrelationships between the board members and the staff members and this woman, Liz, who was killed, gives her some inside information. And both of them are floored by these bizarre botanical clues that somebody keeps dropping, which don't seem to make any sense at all. And B, our heroine is very concerned because she really does not want a couple of people she cares about to get charged with this murder. It looks like it might happen. So she's really motivated to make sure that the right murderer gets killed. I mean, sorry, the right murderer gets identified. And so at this time, it's late June in Tucson. And any of us who live in monsoon country, and that's probably most of us listening, know that when the monsoons are coming on, everybody's on edge. Tension is just building and building and building and building. It's like, when is it going to rain? And so I tried to make that in parallel with when are we ever going to figure out who killed Liz and, get this over with? And then, the rains finally come and the resolution finally comes. So, and why a mystery? I've always liked mysteries. They're relaxing. I read some pretty weighty things, but in between the weighty things, I relax with mysteries. And so I thought I'd try it. And I definitely know something about the workings of botanical gardens, so it made sense for me to do it from the inside of a botanical garden.
That makes sense. I mean, a lot of us, when we're starting out with our writing, we have to draw on what we know and who we are and where we've come from. So that makes a lot of sense. You'll have a lot of, very practical credibility in there. Vicky, how about yourself? The Cactus Plot. How did the Cactus Plot jump into your brain?
Oh, well, I'm going to answer the second part of your question as to why mystery, because you just kind of did a good lead in for that. I chose mystery because it's what I like to read. And the saying, write about what you know, that's mainly the kind of books I've read. And also the area, I set it in our area because I know about this area. I enjoy exploring the backcountry. And so why mystery? I like mysteries, and it's set in this area that I've explored quite a lot. The book is the Cactus Plot. The heroine is Millie Whitehall. She's a botanist from the East Coast who takes a job with the Bureau of Land Management in Northwest New Mexico. She expects to spend a peaceful summer surveying endangered plants. However, 2 murders occur involving plants. She meets various characters while she's out working. These include an oil and gas field hand, a cowboy, a Navajo wildlife biologist, and others, each representing various uses of BLM land. One of these characters ends up threatening her life. Millie is able to figure out who the culprit is by using knowledge of plant ecology.
I really, how many people have ever gone to one of those hard-leaved yuccas and thought, oh my God, that could really hurt somebody. So when you ended up using that, to kill somebody, I was like all over that. It's like, okay.
It worked.
It worked. Okay, Marty. Yeah, here it is. All right, so Marty and Vicky, what led you two to get in touch with and work with Geoff Habiger over at Artemesia Publishing?
Well, actually, my story has to do with Vicky, so it's kind of entertaining. I read an email that she sent to a group that we both belong to called Women Writing the West, and she said, my book is being published by Artemesia Publishing. And so I actually read her book, and I liked it, and I emailed her and I said, so how is Artemesia Publishing to work with? And she said, oh, I really enjoyed working with Geoff. It's great. I learned a lot. So I thought, okay, so he published a book that had a botanist as a protagonist, and it was set in the Southwest. So I'll try him. So that's my story.
Okay.
Vicky?
And why Artemesia?
Yeah.
Apparently just good luck, I think, because it's been great. However, as when I did finish this book, I had submitted it to an agent in Santa Fe. And she gave me some really good advice at that time that I've kind of used throughout this whole publishing process. She said it was a good story, that it wouldn't interest her in particular because it does not have a national scope, and would not be of interest nationally. So she said that I should try a Southwest publisher. So I noodled around, did some research, and came up with Artemesia. And the Southwest there is a key word, in that have to kind of know what audience you're targeting and work with that. So what that agent essentially said was, get real, kid. Your book is never going to make the New York Times, but there's a lot of folks out there that would like this story. So I researched publishers in the Southwest area and took a chance and sent it to Geoff. He liked it, and it's worked out well ever since.
So Geoff, then, what are you looking for when you're considering a mystery manuscript?
Well, so I look for something that will entertain me, honestly. I look for a story that will keep my interest and attention. I am, in addition to being a publisher, I'm a reader and an author. And I read a lot of mysteries, and they run the range from, hard-boiled detective kind of fiction to cozy mysteries. And so, but the criteria has always been, I need to be, basically entertained. And if the book can do that, that's the first step. Then it has to have a compelling story. It has to have a compelling character. Somebody that, I or another reader can relate to. And that's something that both Vicky and Marty have done really well with their books. Both have wonderful lead characters who ordinary readers can easily relate to them. It may be difficult for a reader sometimes to relate to a cop or to the medical examiner or something like that. But, despite very specific skill sets with, like, Millie Vicky's character Millie, or Marty's character, they're ordinary people, and they're the kind of people that people can relate to, and so that's helpful. But then it's got to be a good mystery. I've read mysteries where you read and like a third of the way through, exactly what happened, and that's not good. It's not fun. But both of them had done a wonderful job of laying out the story, laying out the mystery elements that were needed to tell that story. And from there, it was, just kind of fun and everything. So,
Yeah.
So on the converse side, what kind of things would turn you off? If somebody gives you a book that's a mystery, what'll turn you off right away?
For sure, not having a good mystery. Just the flip side of that is, if it's easy to tell what's going on, or if at the same time, if not all of the elements are tied up at the end, all of the loose ends are not addressed or taken care of, that's a real turnoff as well, because, the reader is left with questions, and if those questions aren't answered, it's no fun. At the same time, there needs to be kind of that element of a real mystery. If there's no mysterious elements, nothing to solve per se, then that's not interesting either. Even if you have a good character or a good story. At the same time, the characters got to be believable. They've got to be relatable. They should be, again, somebody that can hold my interest, or the reader's interest. And if they don't do that, doesn't mean that the character has to be a nice person all the time, but they need to be somebody that you can get into and get invested in. And if I don't care what's going on with the character, I'm not going to be interested in it. And every now and then I get a manuscript submitted, and okay, that's fine, but I really could care less what happened to the character. And that's not interesting to me. So.
Okay. You get, I know you do a lot of local books in the sense of New Mexico authors. About how many of the books that you guys put out a year are based in the Southwest versus anywhere else, or else have a Southwestern author, would you say?
Earlier on, I would have said it was 100%, because most of our authors were located here in the Southwest. That number has really kind of shifted. So this past year, we've put out 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 books now. Yeah, 8 books, 9 books this year. And out of those, there's 1, 2, 3 specifically that have a Southwest theme, either a story or a character or a setting in the Southwest. So, and that's about right. It's about 50% right now. So.
Okay. Marty, what was your favorite part of working on the book?
Without a doubt, it's getting to know my own characters and seeing where they take me. I came up with all these different personalities, but then they did the most surprising things and took me to the most unusual places that I wasn't expecting. So kind of getting to know the characters enough to see what they do and how they interact together, it just takes off on its own, and that's a great pleasure.
And your background, how did it contribute to the storyline the most?
Oh, well, my background, I've been on the inside of so many nonprofits, and especially botanical gardens, and I'm quite aware of the dynamics between boards and staffs and between boards, and there are endlessly difficult dynamics that occur in nonprofits. So I I put in just a few slivers of the ones that I'm aware of.
Where did you have the biggest challenge?
I haven't had much contact with the law, and
Ah.
you
Lucky
you
good.
gotta have cops if somebody dies. I mean, and it's a murder mystery. You gotta have cops, and so my strategy was that a lot of the police procedure stuff often occurred off stage, and so then Marcia would say, well, we're not telling you about this, just give me some information to B. So the cop would say that to B, so that she was always an amateur. B was always an amateur, and you always saw it through the eyes of the amateur. And there was some police stuff that had I been a detective, or I would have put in there, but I'm not. I did have two people in law enforcement look at the book and tell me if I did anything wrong. So I did do that.
So I'm going to shift focus here a little bit. Vicky, let's talk about you. What was your favorite part of working on the book?
Well, I enjoy writing like Marty, and just the time just disappears. But what was really neat as it got through the publishing process was all the help I got from friends. My friend in Bluff, Utah, did the color design for it. My husband took the cover photo, and this is taken in Largo Canyon. This is a petroglyph, rock art, a spiral. And the setting is, I call it Lejos Canyon, but it's really Largo Canyon, which is a phenomenal place to visit. Another friend, Rose, you picked up on this, artist friend of mine in Farmington. She drew these little cactuses that are at the beginning of every chapter, and they change through the book. There's 4 versions, and it's small when it starts out, then starts budding out, and then puts out flowers. And she just whipped those out in no time. Another friend, there a lot of help from people. Ann Hillerman was kind enough to read the manuscript, which is very time consuming. I appreciate it, and wrote an endorsement for the back cover. Another friend of mine, Elaine Benally, read it over for cultural content, did an endorsement for the back cover. I'm in a couple critique groups, which were very helpful. And so it's just very satisfying to see how many people were willing to help and come through, and that just felt good.
How many people, or how did you figure out the BLM structure the way it was? Because you had very specific, the BLM located here, they had these vehicles, they had these specialists, etc.
Well, that was easy. My husband is retired from BLM.
Oh.
He knows all the, I got an awful lot of information from him, but our friends are mainly working for public lands management. And so, go out to a 4th of July party and we hear about getting stuck out in the field. And I just hang out with those kinds of people for many, many years, and pull on all of that. Not many books are written set on BLM land. That's another reason I kind of chose the setting. There's the National Park series. Nevada Barr wrote many mysteries set on national parks. Now Scott Lamb has a national park series going. Tony Hillerman, of course, set it on the Navajo Reservation. There's lots of books set on Navajo Reservation, but very, very few fictional mysteries that have the setting on BLM. but that's the largest public land there is in the West. So
It was interesting in the book to me that you also wrote those in there. There were elements of the Navajo Nation and the relationships between them and BLM, the relationships between the BLM and the oil field people that are always going in and digging these days. And how BLM has to balance its requirements amongst all those while trying to save any rare cactus that are out there.
That's exactly right. It's a balance of competing uses, and I admire the people that work for BLM, Forest Service, National Parks. They are in a balancing job all the time.
True.
So Marty, what does your protagonist have to overcome in your book when she's actually going through? She's the newest, you said isn't she like the newest member of the team down there?
Yeah, that's the least of her problems, right? She's a single parent. She's working full time. Her ex-husband isn't particularly helpful. She's in a new job, yes, but worse than that, the place has financial problems, so her job could be on the rocks. And then she's got a boyfriend who, he doesn't really have a job, and you don't know if he's going to even stick around Tucson. And then she's got, the founder of the gardens murdered, and possibly good friends of hers might be accused of it. And everybody is like breathing down her neck saying, you have to figure this out for us, B, because you're friends with a detective. You get this done. So yeah, she's feeling quite a bit of pressure.
I can see that one. Vicky, let's go out. This book actually came out originally in 2019, I believe. And it did already win an award with the New Mexico Arizona Book Awards, which is awesome. Obviously, it's recognized for what it is. What approaches have you been using with marketing when it comes to your book?
Okay, well, marketing works, and but I work very hard at marketing also. And for one shining day, the Cactus Plot reached #1 bestseller on Amazon for cozy mysteries. I was stunned, and that was neat. It was due to an ad that Geoff put on BookBub, which is a social media site for people who are ebook readers. And overall, the Cactus Plot has sold more than 13,000 copies, most of them ebooks, part of them in print. And to me, that's an amazing number to imagine. And how it all happened, backing up from that, it goes back to that good advice that the story would appeal to Southwest readers. So I base my marketing on the idea of niche marketing. That is, this book mentions lots of native plants, conflicts on public lands, and endangered species. So we sent review copies to native plant societies in New Mexico and all the surrounding states. They did a very nice review in all of their newsletters for the book. All of these smaller organizations puts out newsletters. They need fodder for it. And so we sent the book to some kind of obscure situations, such as the New Mexico Electric Co-op puts out a magazine that goes all over New Mexico, and Rose alerted me that the review showed up in that small magazine.
Called Enchantment, and it goes to anybody that is on, not the big cities, but the smaller electrical, like Otero County Electric throughout the state. Yeah. So they do about 4 to 5 reviews a month.
And that they all help. You never know just which one is working, but they all help. So kind of targeting audiences that are interested in plants, public lands, environmental problems. Geoff put ads in likely magazines, High Country News, one, and several in that area. And they reach people with specific interests. And that's what I mean by niche marketing. Not everybody's going to like it, but I do want people who are interested in those areas to know about it and hopefully buy it. And it worked. So I also put the book in local museums and art gallery, gift shops all around here, and did talks to local groups. And so throughout the whole process, I always asked everybody to write a review and put it on Amazon. And surprisingly, many people did. And you don't have to buy the book from Amazon to put on a review on there. And so the reviews eventually hit 100 on Amazon. It's now more than 400 on Amazon, which is pretty good too. So I think when it did well on Amazon, and Geoff submitted the book to BookBub website or media site, they put it up for 99 cents on August 1st. And thousands of people downloaded it right that day or in the succeeding days. And altogether, it really accounted to like 12,000 downloads, which is really neat. So essentially, starting with target marketing, knowing your audience, getting it in areas, publications, outlets that they may see, and then doing just a variety of things locally, but always asking for a review whenever the book is mentioned. And I think all of those kind of snowball work together, and it worked.
Awesome. Geoff, what kind of, if you could play on that, what do you do versus say what the author does?
So, I mean, it was mentioned earlier, I am a very small publisher. We are, and everything. So, we don't have a huge marketing budget. So I'm really dependent. Dependent's not quite the right word. I really like it when we can work in partnership with an author to identify places to do targeted advertising, like Vicky said, like that niche kind of advertising. Looking for places where we can maximize our advertising and everything. And so, but I try to do everything that I can for the author in terms of, sending out the books for review, setting up the ads, paying for the ads, those kinds of things. And to that end, we do a lot of stuff where, we're trying to maximize the advertising budget that we can do. And, sometimes it's a matter of taking chances on things like, newsletters in smaller, basically, garden club organizations and things like that, because those are hit or miss, very much so, and you're never sure exactly what's going to work or what's not. Getting that word of mouth out there helps, though, because as Vicky pointed out, getting people to post reviews really helps, because without those, we could have never gotten the BookBub that we did. And all of that kind of snowballed together. So
awesome. By the way, everybody, if you all in the room want to ask any questions during this, please put them in the chat room for me, and I will pull those out and ask them for you. So if you have any questions, please do that. So Geoff, why is a small independent press a good choice for aspiring authors?
I think we're a good choice because we're much more likely to give them a shot. I'm much more willing to take risks on an author or a story if I think it's good, to give them an opportunity to get their word out there and publish. Like I said, a lot of our books have been focused by the Southwest setting or by Southwest authors. And as Vicky pointed out, I mean, people think that that's too niche of a setting. I don't know how, when Tony Hillerman made his name by writing niche work in the Southwest, but whatever. Giving those authors who may not have an opportunity to get their word out, and who may not be willing to do the work on their own. I mean, these days, it's very easy for people to decide to go a self-publishing route, but to be self-published is a lot of work, and especially to be successful at it. So we can offer an opportunity for people who want to get their work out, but who may not want to do that extra legwork of all of the marketing, all of the business side of things, and all of the technical stuff of laying the book out and all of those kinds of things, or fighting with, printers or publisher or distributors or whoever. So we can provide a skill set there for people. And I think by being smaller, we provide a much more personal relationship with the authors. I work hand in hand with them, sometimes literally, sometimes not, but we work together to make the book the best that it can be. I look at it as very much as a partnership, giving them being involved in decision making on everything from cover layout to how we're going to lay things out, to suggesting where to market the books and everything. And those are all things that they can do on their own as a self-publisher, but when an author starts working with larger publishers, they may not get that kind of attention and everything. I know from a lot of authors who work with really large publishers, they don't get that, and everything. And so that's a service I think that we can provide to the authors as well. So.
Okay. So a question for Marty.
Geoff has been, I want to follow up on that. Geoff's been great to work with in the editing and bringing life to the manuscript, and then putting ads in all these magazines I kept sending him. I was just amazed he kept being willing to do that. It works well.
Excellent. Okay, Marty and Vicky, how much?
As long as it's not too expensive.
Well, there is that, yeah. Marty and Vicky, how much editing did you have to do after acceptance by Artemesia to get your books ready for publication? Was it he works on some of it, you work on some of it, this person in his organization does something, or did you mostly do it and then throw it at him and he tells you what you need to fix, or what?
Yeah, the first version, he sent back a bunch of edits and questions and comments. They weren't always edits. They were like, do you really think she would do this here? Or you might need to fill this out more there, that sort of thing. And then, I would do that. And then he would send it back a second time and say, well, maybe this needs to be fine-tuned in that. And it was actually a really good process. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, content or developmental editing is what you're talking about. And that is how you bring a okay book up level by level to an exceptional book.
Yeah.
So, Vicky?
I second that. Again, a lot of help from critique groups to have it as polished as I could do it. But other eyes can still see holes in it. And Geoff sent it back with a ton of comments and formatting on it. And I worked through those. They did nothing but make the book better. He had another person go through it and edit it, but it was just maybe 2 rounds like that. maybe 1.5. That after Geoff's first run on it, it finished up pretty well, I think.
Okay, Geoff, do you anticipate the market for mysteries to stay strong? And do you have any advice for beginning writers?
I hope it stays strong. And honestly, I think it will. Mysteries tends to be one of the top genre categories that are out there. And it only gets, it's only continuing to be innovated and expanded upon by the authors that are out there that are writing. I mean, you can find, again, everything from, you know, hard-boiled detective fiction to really light, cozy mysteries to paranormal mysteries to everything in between. And you know, I think the limit of that genre is only going to be limited by the creativity of the authors. And I think you can see that there are plenty of people out there that just love these kinds of stories, and they will continue to be there. You know, I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon.
Okay. So one of the questions in the chat room from Marty, Turo noted a B. Rivers mystery on the cover. So is there going to be more B. Rivers in your future?
Yes. In a word, yes. I actually have sent Geoff another one that I had been working on for a while, and it takes place partly at the same garden in Tucson and partly in a town called Copperton, New Mexico, in southern New Mexico. And the plot involves archaeological looting of ancient Mimbres sites. It gets woven into a discovery of 40-year-old bones on the grounds of the botanical garden in Tucson. And if that seems like a stretch, I don't know, not so much.
Okay, then, Vicky, is Millie going to be coming back in her next life? Or in your next?
I wish you'd asked me that question first, because I am working on a sequel, and it sounds a bit like what Marty has done, but just a bit. Yes, my heroine, Millie, the botanist, will be back, this time working with an archaeologist, and they're going to be documenting one of the old early homesteads in what is Largo Canyon. I call it Lejos Canyon. And I'm going to work through, or what I want to bring out in that is the phases of human occupation in this area, Northwest New Mexico, starting with ancestral Puebloans, early Navajo settlement, place of origin, their beliefs, Hispanic homesteaders, up through the oil and gas production in this area. And I want to cover those layers of people that have lived in that area. And I think it's just a really interesting human history of this corner of the state. And so my emphasis this time will be on more Hispanic families that have settled this area back in the 1800s. It's that current era, of course, but they will be documenting an old homestead and find a lot of surprises. And one of them will be a body, because it's a mystery.
Of course. Seems like all the mysteries these days all wrap around death, although there are some places where it's not quite so dramatic, and that's still a mystery. But so both authors, how long were you thinking about this story before it actually got on, you even began on paper? Or how, you know, before you actually ever started writing, how did you think it out? Marty?
Well, somebody asked me if I thought of the protagonist first or I thought of the plot first, and I said neither. I thought of the location first.
Hmm.
I wanted to get this garden laid out in my mind and everything about this garden first. So I had that figured out. And then I figured out the protagonists, and then I started thinking about all these bizarre characters on the staff and the board. And then the plot kind of took off from the characters. But I always, I love the Sonoran Desert, and I wanted throughout the book to give a real feel of the Sonoran Desert. And I just tried to, permeate Sonoran Desert natural history, have the book permeated with Sonoran Desert natural history. So that was a goal. I had a goal to bring up climate change in a number of ways. I had a goal to bring up racism in Tucson historically and currently in some ways. So there were a few things I wanted to weave in there, and to find ways to do that.
Excellent. Vicky?
Well, I get that question. How long did it take you to write the book? And I say maybe 3 years to seriously work on it. But I also say it takes a lifetime of running into different characters and kind of stowing it away in your mind, and learning about plants and the area that I live in. So when people ask how long does it take to write a book, my real answer is it takes a lifetime. But my other interest, again, I have enjoyed Nevada bar books, which are mysteries set in different national parks. But they so seldom talked about the natural history of the parks. They're pretty much police procedurals, and missed all the interesting trees and plants and culture of the national parks. So I thought,
I agree.
and very few things said on BLM land. So I wanted to have it full of natural history, plants, scenery, landscape, and set on BLM land, and it evolved from there.
Okay, then. So we've got about 7 minutes left. I've gotten through all of the chat questions and the ones that I had here. And Marty, I thought you had some time. We could, since we got a few minutes left here, maybe get a taste of your book, since that one's just come out, and a lot of people probably haven't had the joy of being able to even get a hold of it yet. So
Okay.
Can you read something for us?
I will. I'll read a passage close to the beginning. I need to tell you just a couple of things so you're not confused, since I'm not starting on page 1. Angus is the head gardener, and Bee's, he's a friend of Bee's. Ethan is her boss, the executive director. And a mosaic is referred to. This is not a normal mosaic. When the founder was hit by the eucalyptus branch, she was walking towards this bizarre looking mosaic that was clearly a picture of her as a young woman, because she had a cleft in her chin, with a red rose between her teeth and a red rose on her lapel. So it was just the most odd thing to be out in the middle of the garden. So Angus met her at the front door. His eyes were dull and almost as gray as his beard today. He was pale again beneath the tan. It was the same odd color he'd had the day before after he found Liz. Without the humor that usually lit up his face, he looked 60, although Bee knew he was several years younger than that. He came straight to the point. She died, Bee. This was the possibility that Bee had been trying to block out of her mind. The cops are on their way. Bee sagged against the door jamb. I know, I can't believe it either, said Angus. Lord only knows what this means for Shanley Gardens. She caught a glimpse of 2 squad cars pulling up to the building, but she hurried away from them. She wasn't in her office long before her boss came in. As usual, Ethan was perfectly dressed. He wore a freshly pressed white shirt. Well, he wasn't looking for missing shoes in the kitchen cabinet before work. But the day's events were ruffling even Ethan's equable disposition. He ran a hand through his hair and neglected to smooth it back down so that he had a tuft sticking straight up over his right ear. B. Liz died of her head wounds. The police are having a look at the artwork and the eucalyptus tree and that damn fallen branch, and they're probably going to want to talk to all of us. You may need to stick around all day. Thank God it's Monday. He grimaced and went out. Easy for him to say. Shanley Gardens was closed on Mondays and they wouldn't have to deal with the public today, but Bee's kids were used to having a half day on Mondays since she had to work Saturdays. She'd have to let the camp know. She called the camp and nearly finished the July volunteer staffing chart when Angus knocked on the door. 2 knocks, a pause, then 2 knocks. Their identification code. She put the phone down and was glad she had when she got a look at Angus. He sagged into the chair across from her. "Bee, I think they believe I killed her." She could hardly hear him. "Oh, come on, Angus. Why would you want to do that? It was an accident." "Maybe not. I got called in for an interview. They found some saw marks on the limb that fell on her. And B, it was partially sawed through, if you can believe it." "No." "Yeah. And climbing up in that tree would take some physical agility, not what you'd expect of a lot of people around here, elderly board members and volunteers." Angus sighed like a tired old man who wouldn't have that kind of agility either. "And I was the one who found her. Plus, they didn't like it. I'd already taped off the whole grove with caution tape before they got here. But heck, I was just trying to save somebody else from an accident. That's my job." He'd been saying all this while examining his hands. Then he looked at Bee. "Bee, you know I thought Liz was a pain in the ass, but you don't kill somebody who's a pain in the ass." "Of course not. But who on earth would want to do that to her?" "Well, maybe they'll decide you wanted to. I forgot to mention you're next. They're interviewing in the volunteer room." Early on.
Well, thank you very, very much. It's 7:58, and so our hour is just about up. I have one last question in here. Are your main characters modeled after anyone you know?
There is much of a younger me in B. Not entirely, but those who know me could see parts of me.
Vicky?
No one person in particular. I know a lot of women who work in the outdoors, and I kind of cobble all those characteristics together. To build a character, I do picture somebody I know in my mind and describe them. However, what they do and say may be totally different from that real person. But the oil and gas field hand in my book is modeled after our neighbor, because he's such a good fellow and a big help. He'll help anybody, anytime. And so I kind of described him and kept thinking about him every time he showed up, and he helps Millie quite a bit. So I model characters after a real person physically, and then go and do whatever they do on their own. As Marty said, some of them just take on a whole different character than what I expected. And that did happen with a person in my book. And when I needed another character, he just stepped forward and said, "Oh, I'll do that. I'll be that person." And so in a way, I am thinking of a real person for different characters, but then I make up everything else about them. And that's the fun part.
Yeah. So Geoff, we're going to be, as you know, we've recorded this and stuff. Do you have any final words to say to anybody about the whole process and about the recording, etc.?
Not really. I mean, we'll take the recording and I'll post it on the Artemesia YouTube page, which is highly unvisited, but it's there. And it's a good repository for things like this and everything. Other than just if, you know, I hope people are interested enough, if they have not yet, go pick up both books because I think they're wonderful. I think Vicky and Marty have done a fantastic job with these stories, and that I am looking forward to reading the sequels to both of them and getting them out there as well.
Okay.
I
Thank you all for joining us tonight. And, you know, Vicky and Marty are both looking forward also to hearing from you. If you've read their books, let them know what you think. And because that'll help them, you know, maybe you have some ideas to toss to them about the next versions or the next sequel, etc. This is Rose Kern from.
Thank you, Rose.
I wanted just to say thank you again for letting me be involved with this, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everybody.